The Australian share market managed a modest improvement today, up by around 8 points in the shadow of an historic event in Singapore with Donald Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea. An important outcome, but it's a slow burn as far as market expectations are concerned. But when you look at the bigger picture, this potentially removes a flashpoint for the markets, which has been around for a long time. But steady as she goes as far as market sentiment is concerned. The improvement for the market overall was quite encouraging in the context of the weakness for the banks. So to do that when all of the big four banks were lower was a good outcome. And one of the factors that was adding pressure to the banks was the weakness that we saw in the housing finance figures for the month of April, down by 1.4%. But more importantly, it was the fifth consecutive month of declines as far as housing finance is concerned. Now that measure is down by around 3% in year-on-year terms, and it's continuing to be driven lower by investment lending. Lending to owner-occupiers is largely sideways. An interesting statistic to come out of the figures was that the average home loan size was up by about 7% in the last year to $398,500. So that's actually the highest that the average mortgage in Australia has ever been in historic terms. So another thing to bear in mind just in terms of the outlook for consumer spending is that petrol prices were down by around 4% on average nationally, 4.5 cents rather, on average nationally in the last week. That was the biggest decline in 8 months. So that normally would have provided a bit of a fillip where the consumer-facing stocks were concerned, but it was a mixed picture for that group today. Harvey Norman shares were just in positive territory. JB Hi-Fi was a little bit negative. Elsewhere, as far as notable moves on the day were concerned, Bubs, the infant formula maker, which is focused on goat milk as the basis for their infant formula. They had a very good week last week, up by around 11%. Today, that stock was up by around 8%. The catalyst for that group has been the key supply agreements that have been penned over the course of the last week. Ausdrill, this is an organisation that provides mining services. Today, in their update, they flagged that one of their major contracts is likely to almost halve in value over the course of the next 3 years. So a big shock to investors, which saw that stock marked down quite aggressively. Caltex was up by around 2% on the back of an effective earnings upgrade. The Aussie dollar a little bit weaker over the course of the early part of the session, but it recovered. It's trading at 76.1 US cents.